I always figure myself as a guy who pulled himself up by his own bootstraps. See? In San Francisco's crazy tech world, I was making a name for myself. People knew me for being smart, super driven, and, well, not exactly the commitment type. Relationships? Way too messy. Anything that wasn't work? Forget about it. I was all about doing my own thing, calling all the shots. My life was just my career, plain and simple. But, life's got a funny way of throwing curveballs. One cold Monday morning, I was up in my office, the one that looks all fancy and clean, staring out at the Bay Bridge, when my phone buzzed. It was Dalton, our family lawyer. I nearly let it go to voicemail. I hadn't given my family's stuff a second thought in months. But then I heard Dalton's message, something about it being urgent and the inheritance thing, and it kind of made me sit up and pay attention. A few minutes later, I was planted in Dalton's slick downtown office, wrinkling my forehead as he got down to brass tacks and told me about this crazy condition. My grandma, Evelyn Whitmore, she was a real pioneer in the tech game, left behind a pretty big deal. The main prize was Whitmore Innovations, her company, which was worth billions, with a B. But here's the kicker. To get my hands on the inheritance, Dalton tells me, like he's reading off a grocery list, I gotta get hitched within 10 days. I'm sitting there blinking. Mary? 10 days? You gotta be pulling my leg. Dalton just nods, real serious, and slides a copy of the will across the table. Your grandmother was dead serious about this, he says. She thought that if you're gonna be a leader, you gotta have your personal life sorted. This was her way of making sure you were ready for the job. It all felt like a dream. I leaned back in my chair, trying to wrap my head around it. Marriage? Stability? Those words were like something out of a foreign language. My idea of a commitment was getting a new phone before the old one broke. Let me see if I got this straight, I said, trying to keep the disbelief out of my voice. You're telling me I got 10 days to find a girl, put a ring on her finger, and make everyone believe it's for real, or I'm out of the whole shebang? Dalton just nods again, not blinking. That's right. For the first time in I don't know how long, I felt the rug getting pulled out from under me. The life I made, the one where I didn't answer to nobody, was suddenly on the line. The big question was, could I pull this off? Now, I'm not one to lose my cool. I'm good under pressure, always thinking a step ahead of the other guy. But even so, as I walked out of Dalton's office, the reality of what was happening started to hit me like a ton of bricks. 10 days. 10 days to find a wife and make everyone buy it. Back in my apartment, a fancy high-rise full of expensive furniture and absolutely nothing personal, I started trying to figure this mess out. The usual stuff wasn't gonna cut it. Dating apps? No way, too slow. Matchmakers? Too much fuss. I thought about maybe a skin around, seeing if I knew anybody, but I shut that down real quick. Messing around with my work life that seemed like a disaster waiting to happen. How's that for a first pass? Let me know what you think, and we can adjust as needed. Gotta think outside the box on this one, I mumbled to myself. Next morning, after downing my third espresso, I told Maya, my assistant, who I trust with my life. She's been with me for years, always sharp, knows how to get things done, and ain't afraid to tell me when I'm being a complete idiot. You need to find a wife in 10 days? Maya asked, raising her eyebrows like I'd sprouted a second head. That's a pretty tall order even for you. Look, I said, correcting her, I need a wife. Not a girlfriend, not a partner, just someone who knows this is all business. Maya leaned against my desk, smirking. So, you're looking for a marriage with none of that mushy, touchy-feely garbage? Exactly, I told her. No drama, no attachments, just a deal that helps us both out. Maya tilted her head, thinking. Well, you could always use your contacts. I'm sure someone would be willing to play along if the price is right. I shook my head. I don't want to turn my friends or the people I work with into pawns. It's got to be someone outside the whole scene, someone who understands what this really is. That's when Maya's face lit up like an Tetmas tree. I got it. Why don't you just hire someone? Not through some dating service or nothing, but someone who really needs the cash. That way, it's just a straight-up business deal. That idea kind of stuck with me. It was a little out there, sure, but let's face it, My situation wasn't exactly normal. A paid partner, someone with no feelings getting in the way, that might just work. That night, I found myself in this little art cafe downtown, tucked away on a quiet street. It's one of those places I go to clear my head. The smell of coffee mixed in with a low buzz of people talking. I definitely wasn't expecting to find a solution to my problems there, though. But then I saw her, Lena Torres. She moved behind the counter like she was born to be there, her long dark hair pulled back, managing orders and chatting with customers. There was something about her that just pulled you in. She had this confidence, this spark in her brown eyes. I watched Lena deal with some cranky customer, and she did it with class, keeping her voice calm and friendly. She wasn't just some waitress, she was something special, making people respect her without even trying. When she came over to take my order, I felt something weird, something I didn't recognize, hesitation. But I brushed it off. This wasn't about getting all emotional. This was about fixing a problem. I paused for a second, then cleared my throat. "Excuse me," I said, trying to sound all cool and businesslike, even though I felt kinda awkward. "I have an unusual offer for you." Lena blinked, her pen still over her notepad. "An offer? For coffee, I guess." I smiled, but not too much. "Not exactly. How would you feel about making a deal? You marry me for 10 days, help me with a legal thing, and I'll take care of any money problems you got." The cafe seemed to go quiet, or maybe it was just Lena's brain short-circuiting. She stared at me, looking like she couldn't decide if I was crazy or just plain funny. "You're kidding, right?" "I'm dead serious," I told her, looking her straight in the eye. "It's just business. No strings attached." Lena tilted her head, looking me up and down. "Why me, though? Out of everyone in this city, why pick a waitress working at a cafe?" I leaned in a little closer, keeping my voice low and steady. "Because you're not just some waitress. You're smart, quick on your feet, and you seem like a real person. I don't need some fancy socialite or some trophy wife. I need someone who can handle the stress of all this and walk away clean, no problems." The mention of money definitely got her attention. Her family's graphic design business was barely staying afloat, and they were drowning in debt. My offer could be the thing that saved them, but marrying some guy she didn't know, even for a little while, that sounded nuts. After a long pause, she finally spoke up. "What exactly are you offering me?" My voice didn't shake a bit. "Total financial security for the next year. I'll pay off your debts, cover your rent, make sure your business gets back on track. All you gotta do is marry me for 10 days, go to a couple of events, and make my family lawyer believe this is the real deal. After that, we go our separate ways." Lena was looking me up and down, like she was trying to figure out if I was on the level. Her mind was probably racing with all the what-ifs. There were risks, sure, but the payoff was pretty big too. Slowly, she put her hand out. "All right, Nate," she said, her voice firm. "You got yourself a deal." As soon as she said it, Lena probably thought she'd lost her mind. Agreeing to marry some stranger, even if it was just for 10 days, sounded like something outta a cheesy movie. But when we shook hands, she reminded herself why she said yes in the first place. Her graphic design business was barely hanging on. Her landlord was ready to kick her out, and she couldn't stand the thought of her family's studio having to shut down. This wasn't just some deal. It was her last shot at turning things around. I, on the other hand, was trying to look calm. "We're gonna keep this professional," I told her, sounding all businesslike. "No surprises, no unnecessary drama. Just stick to the plan, and this will all be over before you know it." Lena nodded, but I could tell her mind was already going a mile a minute. "All right, but if we're gonna do this thing, we need some ground rules. Boundaries." "Agreed," I said, signaling to Maya, who'd quietly come into the cafe to make sure everything was going smooth. Maya whipped out her notepad and started scribbling down all the rules as Lena laid them out. "No touching, unless we gotta do it for show. Anything we do outside the family stuff is strictly business. And no butting into each other's lives, unless it's absolutely necessary." I smirked at that last one. "Don't worry, I ain't got no interest in sticking my nose where it don't belong." "Good," Lena snapped back, her voice a little sharp. As we were working out the rest of the details, Maya cut in. "We gotta move fast. Nate's family's gonna want to meet Lena in the next couple of days. That means we need a dress, a believable story about how you two met, and a plan for how this whole whirlwind thing went down. Whirlwind romance, Lena repeated, raising an eyebrow. Gotta make it look real, Maya explained. This whole thing needs to be believable enough to fool Nate's family, Dalton, and anyone else who starts asking questions. I leaned back in my chair, looking right at Lena. Can you handle all that? Lena crossed her arms. You're asking me to lie to a bunch of people who've known you your whole life. Let's just hope I'm as clever as you think I am. The next 2 days were a complete whirlwind. Maya, always on top of things, handled every last detail. Lena got fitted for a simple, elegant wedding dress that went perfectly with my polished style. We found a local judge to do a quickie ceremony at the courthouse. As the big day got closer, Lena was standing in front of the mirror in that tiny dressing room at the courthouse. She hardly recognized the woman staring back at her. Her hair was all done up in soft waves, and her makeup made her look even better than usual. For a second, she let herself pretend that this was a real wedding, that she wasn't about to marry some guy she'd met 3 days ago. When she walked into the courtroom, I was already there waiting. My suit fit me like a glove, and for the first time, Lena saw something on my face. I think it was nervousness. You clean up pretty good, she said, trying to break the tension. So do you, I said, my voice a little softer than I expected. The ceremony was over in like 5 minutes. The judge was just mumbling words while Lena tried to keep it together. When it was time for the kiss, I hesitated for a second, then leaned in and touched my lips to hers, real quick and precise. It was the most business-like kiss I'd ever given, but it did the trick. As we walked out of the courthouse, cameras from my family's PR team started flashing, taking pictures of everything. Lena forced a smile, remembering that this was all part of the show. After that crazy ceremony, the reality of our weird deal started to set in. Later that night, as we were getting ready to take off on our honeymoon, Lena turned to me. So what's next? Private jet to some fancy island. I smirked and pointed to the vehicle that was waiting. It wasn't no jet. It was a beat-up green camper van. Meet Sage, I said, trying not to laugh. This is gonna be our home for the next 10 days. Lena just stared at the van, her mouth hanging open. You're kidding me, right? This is your idea of a honeymoon. I shrugged. It's not like I had a say in it. My grandma's will says we gotta travel across the country in this thing. Guess she thought it would teach me something about being humble or something. Lena groaned, probably regretting the whole deal already. But as she climbed into the van and sat down next to me, she realized something. This was gonna be the weirdest 10 days of her life. The engine coughed and sputtered as that green camper van, they called it Sage, pulled out onto the highway. Inside, Lena sat with her arms crossed. Lena glared at the dashboard, which was kind of falling apart. Meanwhile, I was messing with the radio, trying to find a station that wasn't just static. This is what I signed up for, Lena muttered, shaking her head. A road trip in a tin can? I glanced over at her, keep my face straight. It's character building, I said. Or at least, that's what my grandma would say. Those first few hours were pretty uncomfortable. That camper, even though it looked kinda cute on the outside, was nothing like the fancy stuff we were used to. The bed was tiny, the kitchen was cramped, and the shower barely put out a stream of cold water. And that was just the beginning. Lena had learned to get by with less growing up, but she couldn't help but laugh as she watched me, a guy who probably hadn't touched a frying pan in his life, try to work the stove. I think you're supposed to light the burner first, Lena said, leaning against the counter as I fought with the knobs. I know that, I snapped back, but I could feel my face getting red. A second later, the burner went up in flames, almost burning my expensive sleeve. Lena laughed a little. Move over, city boy, she said. Let me show you how it's done. As the days went by, things kept going wrong. The van's engine coughed and wheezed going uphill, the fridge quit working, and we got lost a few times on those back roads. But even with all the trouble, we started to have these little moments. Moments that started to break down the walls we'd put up between us. One time, we stopped in this quiet town by a lake, and I surprised Lena by getting her favorite coffee. I remembered her order from the cafe. I figured you'd need this, I said, handing her the hot cup. Thanks, Lena said, looking a little surprised. I didn't think you noticed stuff like that. I notice things that are important, I said real simple. That kinda shut her up for a minute. Another night, we parked the van at this place with a great view. We sat outside under the stars, wrapped up in blankets to keep warm. Lena was drinking hot chocolate, and she looked over at me. So you miss your fancy place yet? I smirked. I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss it, but this ain't as bad as I thought it would be. High praise, Lena said, teasing me. Her laugh kinda broke the silence of the night. I leaned back, looking up at the stars. I don't think I've slowed down like this in years. Always rushing to the next meeting, the next deal. I didn't realize how much I needed this. Lena looked at me, kinda surprised to hear me say that. Guess your grandma knew what she was doing after all. That van, Sage, became more than just something to drive around in. It became a place where Nate and Lena started to let their guard down. I started showing Lena that I actually had a sense of humor and that I could be thoughtful, even though I try to act all cool and distant. Lena started telling me stuff about her life, her problems with her business, how much she loved art, and how she wanted to save that studio. One night, while I was trying to cook some pasta on that crazy stove in the van, I turned to Lena with a kinda embarrassed grin. I think I just invented a new dish, burnt noodles a la Sage. Lena just burst out Logan and grabbed the pot away from me. Okay, chef, she said, step aside. Let me show you how a real meal is made. And for the first time, it felt like that line between us being just business partners and something else was starting to fade. What started as a cold, planned-out deal now felt warm, almost right. I started looking forward to Lena's teasy comments, and she started to see the good in those quiet, thoughtful things I did. The 10th day showed up with this mix of nervous energy and this feeling that it was all meant to happen. Lena and I had spent the last 9 days dealing with this crazy journey, both on the road and with each other. That deal we'd made had turned into something way more than we'd bargained for, even though neither of us wanted to admit it. We parked Sage outside my family's place, a big OL mansion up in the hills outside San Francisco. The house was buzzing with people, relatives, friends, employees, all there for this fancy reception to celebrate Nate and Lena's wedding. I saw Dalton, the family lawyer, in the crowd. That guy never misses a thing. You ready for this? Lena asked as we got out of the van. I straightened my tie, trying not to show what I was feeling. As ready as I'll ever be. As soon as we walked inside, I felt like I couldn't breathe. Lena could feel all those eyes on us as we walked into the main hall. My family, dressed in their expensive stuff and holding champagne, wasn't doing a very good job of hiding that they didn't believe us. Nate, I heard someone call from across the room. Some older guy, looked a lot like me, walked over with this fake smile on his face. That was Raymond Whitmore, my uncle, and he's been giving me grief about my life for years. And you must be the new Mrs. Whitmore, Raymond said, making it sound like he was looking down on us. Lena put out her hand, trying to stay calm. Pleased to meet you. Raymond barely shook her hand before turning back to me. She's, different from what I expected. I thought you were never going to settle down. Life surprises us all, I said, smooth as could be, putting my arm around Lena's waist. The night just kept going on and on as we talked to people, answering all their questions about our story. We'd practiced what to say, but with Dalton looking at us, Lena started to get nervous. Finally, Dalton came over, looking all calm and professional. Nate, Lena, can I talk to you for a minute? We followed him to this private room where he told us to sit down. I've been watching you two pretty closely these past few days, Dalton started, putting his hands together on the desk. And while your story's interesting, I gotta say, something's just not adding up. I leaned forward, keeping my voice steady. What exactly are you getting at? For one thing, your backgrounds. A quick romance between a tech big shot and a freelance artist is kinda strange, to say the least. Lena's heart started pounding, but she kept her eyes locked on Dalton. Love doesn't always make sense, Mr. Dalton. Nate and I met by accident, but we clicked because we push each other in ways nobody else ever has. You can't fake that. I nodded, and my voice got softer. She's right. I never thought I'd meet someone like Lena, but she's changed my whole life. She makes me a better person, and I can't imagine not having her around. I surprised even myself with how honest I was being. This wasn't part of the story we practiced. It was the truth. Lena turned to me, and her eyes were Shernine. And Nate has shown me a whole world I never thought I could be in. Not 'cause he's rich or nothing, but 'cause of who he is. He's made me believe in myself again. Dalton watched us, and you couldn't tell what he was thinking. After a long silence, he finally nodded. I believe you. We both felt a wave of relief, but we didn't have time to start celebrating. Dalton took us back to the main room, where my family was waiting for the final word. Standing in front of everyone, Dalton cleared his throat. After watching them closely, I'm satisfied that this marriage meets the terms of Evelyn Whitmore's will. The room clapped, but I barely heard it. All I could see was Lena standing next to me, her hand lightly touching my arm. When the clapping died down, I turned to her. Lena, I gotta tell you something. She looked up at me, looking kinda curious. This started out as just a deal, but something changed along the way. You pushed me, made me look at the world different, and showed me what's really important. I love you, not because of our agreement, but because of who you are. Lena gasped a little. For a second, I forgot about the room and all the people watching us. Nate, she said, and her voice was shaken. I didn't see this coming either, but I love you too. The crowd started talking. Then they started cheering as I pulled Lena close and kissed her. That kiss sealed more than just the will. It sealed a new start for both of us. For Nate and Lena, this wasn't the end of the road. It was just the beginning. Nate and Lena's story shows us that love can show up in the weirdest places. So what do you think? Can a relationship that starts as a deal turn into something real? Let us know what you think about their story and what you'd do if you were in their shoes. Leave a comment below and let's talk about it.